Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guests today are Katie Knight, the Community Engagement Officer at Apple FCU, and Dr. Latanya McDade, the Superintendent of Schools for Prince William County Public Schools. Great to have you both here. Thank you so much. Dr. McDade, I want to start with you. Tell us about what your school system does to educate kids on financial matters, and right now how many students are benefiting from it.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited about this topic because it's so important for our students to realize the vision of Prince William County, which is to create a thriving future for themselves and their community. We are in Prince William County ensuring that every student prior to graduation is enrolled in an economics and personal finance course. It is a graduation requirement for those students who are pursuing a standard or advanced diploma. And so students have an opportunity to really understand deeply, not just economics, but personal finance and understanding how to make sound decisions when it comes to their finances, understanding economic stability, as well as being a responsible citizen. So the course covers so many different concepts from banking to saving, investing, understanding economic trends as it relates to inflation, tax rates. And so those are critical skills for students to learn so that when they graduate from us, we believe they'll have strong financial wealth and health.
Sounds great. Is that some sort of like off-the-shelf curriculum that you teach, or do you kind of figure this out as you go along? How do you make it work?
Well, a couple of things I think is important to note. The General Assembly did pass Senate Bill 950 back in about 2005, which required the Virginia Department of Education to establish standards and objectives for personal finance and economics. And so we do follow those standards. We do have EverFi modules that our teachers utilize, so we do have structured curriculum for that. But I'll say in Prince William County, we've even gone a step further to improve. So we ensure that our students have an opportunity upon completion of the course to take, just starting last year now, they take what's called the WISE certification test. We have about an 81% pass rate on that, so that's pretty high, where students, once they pass and get that certification, it denotes that they are graduating with strong financial health and wellness concepts and a foundation in economics and personal finance.
Sounds like you have state standards that you're going above and beyond, though.
Yes, so to offer the certification, because that's not a requirement from the state. That's something that we're doing. We just started offering in Prince William County last year, and so we've got over about 5,400 students that have now passed the WISE and gotten the certification.
Obviously, parents want to send the kids to school and get them full of information, but what do you think the role of parents is in all this? They can't just expect you to do everything.
Well,
I don't think.
Well, that's a great question because, in everything that we do in education, I always say that the first teacher is the parent, right? The family unit is the microsystem, and that's, most of us learned our first kind of financial habits from the parents, from being at home. I even think about my own son. I'll remember he was probably like maybe 8 or 9, and we were driving. He's like, he wanted something, and I was like, we don't have money for that. And he said, well, you could just go to the ATM. Right. And I'm like, whoa, I think I need to do a better job here in making sure he understands like where money comes from, how it gets to the bank, etc. So the parents, our families play really a critical role in establishing a student's foundation in understanding economics and personal finance. And we are an extension of what happens in the home, which is why it's important for us to be trusted partners in education with our families.
Katie, I want to bring you in. What's been your experience in, observing what students need to learn at even a young age?
So I think trusted partner is the key word here, right? The landscape has changed dramatically even since when I was first learning about finance as a kid, and that's quick. So as a representative from the credit union and somebody that can offer some financial wellness at different levels, we come in and work with the public schools and others to provide that and meet the needs where they are. So we'll talk to second graders, we'll do after school programs, we'll tag on to investment conversations and the like. And then we also at the credit union view it's our responsibility to educate our members and anybody that'll hear about it through our website and other workshops and videos and articles and that kind of thing.
So question for both of you, Dr. McDade first, what's next in this area? How can you kind of push the envelope even further in educating kids in this regard?
I really want to build on the last question around parent and community engagement. And I think one of the critical levers for us is how we support our families as well, and not just our students in the classroom. So some of the things that we've been doing, I think this is a space or opportunity for growth for us. Some of the things that we've been doing is we have a family and community engagement series, and these are like educational learning sessions for our families. They can sign up virtually and in person. And so we've been adding now course offerings around financial, stability, economic stability, personal finance for our families, for our parents. And as a matter of fact, our college and career counseling suite has currently developed a course specifically designed for parents of elementary students, right, to help them understand how they can work with their students at home and teach their students at home. That's something that we're doing. Another thing I think is important to note is that we see ourselves in Prince William County as if we do a good job, if we do the job we're supposed to do in providing high quality education from pre-K to 12th grade, then our students should be able to graduate, acquire a rewarding career, and experience economic mobility, which means that we have to recognize that post-secondary goals come with financial burdens. So I think what's really next for us, and something we've been doing heavily now, is preparing both families, parents, and students to understand how to finance their future goals, particularly college, because we know the significant barrier that finances play when it comes to college. So we're now really teaching students about student loans, making sure that they're not being saddled with debt as they pursue a post-secondary degree, helping them to understand the benefits of having the kind of GPA that would allow them to compete for scholarships, and then really educating our parents on what options they have to fund their child's educational future. So that's really what's next for us. We've already started that work, but I think that's an area that we can continue to bolster.
I was just going to say that I feel like remaining blind to learning about these opportunities is what prevents people from that mobility
Absolutely.
that you were talking about, Dr. McDade. And so for us, getting the education out there is really about raising the tide so that we can lift all the boats in the community. Just like learning to drive, right? We don't just send people out teenagers out in cars on the highway. We're learning about it in the classroom, and then we're practicing in a parking lot. And I think the role of the credit union, the role of public education is to assist parents and kids as they're growing up and learning how to manage their own money as it comes in with that sort of safe environment. Because you really don't learn until you've got an income to play with on your own.
That's right.
And if you don't have that financial background and you haven't seen it before, that can be really scary and you can make some really big mistakes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You mentioned courses in economics. I remember taking economics, and it was supply and demand and trade imbalances,
Right.
and I didn't really get any personal finance tips out of it. How do you make that, relevant to people where you are learning financial matters, but how do you apply them?
Right. Well, a couple of things too, I think, is we've got to acknowledge that the world has changed around us, and the concepts that students really need to engage with look different. We're now in a world where I can't tell you the last time I actually even exchanged paper money.
Yeah, physical money,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so teaching students today requires that we address, things like alternative payment methods like Zelle and Cash App and cryptocurrency. So some of the things that we're doing within the coursework is making sure that we're addressing what's happening in the world around them today. And so even with our EverFi literacy, financial literacy modules, it teaches students about having a cryptocurrency wallet, how to make payments with cryptocurrency, and even how to trade and invest in cryptocurrency. So I think it's critically important for us to recognize that the economic landscape today looks very different than it did yesterday, and so we have to prepare students for a future, honestly, that doesn't even exist right now.
Well, and what you're doing is staying relevant to the kids at that time. What you're talking about, John, is feeling like it wasn't even relevant to you. And we've got neighbor kids that have lawn mowing businesses and dog walking businesses, and we're paying them via Zelle or PayPal or what have
Exactly.
you. And so if you're not speaking to it in that regard in the classroom, then where's the relevance there and where's the learning? So
We have our horticultural students who are members of FFA, And what they do is they grow produce and flowers, and then they turn around and they sell it. So they're learning like business models, right? So those are some of the things also that we're doing to make sure that we're preparing them to see how what they learn in the coursework actually applies to real life.
Integrating with tangible examples. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, when you do something like a lesson on cryptocurrency, do you find that that resonates with the kids a lot?
Absolutely, because they don't even now. Like I said, I can't remember a time where I handled paper money, but that's the way I grew up, right? Well, our students, especially Gen Z, I don't think they came into a world where everything was digital. So they've really never had to actually engage with traditional currency. So it is important for them because that is the world that they currently will have to navigate to have economic stability.
I imagine those lessons come with a lot of warnings for kids.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lots of warnings for them in terms of fraud and privacy and data, et cetera. But then also what comes from that in terms of lessons is going back to that kind of real world application of understanding interest rates and inflation, and should I buy or lease a car, making really large financial decisions, but also independent living. At some point, we hope they will not be in our homes and they'll be living, on their own. But this also helps them to understand independent living.
Did you have any thoughts?
Gosh, John.
I have one question for both of you. Do you think that it's appropriate for, high school age kids to have a job to start to develop those financial skills, or is it better for them to focus on studies so they can set themselves up for college or future learning? What's the thinking there?
Before Dr. McDade takes it from a parent's perspective, not necessarily anything else. So I've got a 9-year-old and a nearly 7-year-old. And I think as you were talking about parents playing such an important role in kind of the first look at finances, what my spouse and I were talking about had to do with allowance and chores. And I come from a background where I never got an allowance. You did chores because that's what was required of the family. It was your obligation, your duty to the family to do this. And at least the decision we made had to do with you can't learn about money unless you've got a consistent income. And then you're really weighing wants versus needs, and you're applying those lessons that are taught as early as kindergarten or first grade. And so we decided that, in fact, we would implement some kind of allowance system so that when we're at the Target checkout and somebody wants something that's made of plastic that we're going to lose in approximately 3 hours, it's on them to make that decision, right? It's their responsibility. So I don't know where that leaves us with getting a job while you're in high school, but I think having an income to start learning with those guardrails up is really important.
Yeah, I would plus that to say all of that plus yes. I think that students having to balance their studies and a part-time job is a plus for them in so many ways. But in keeping with the topic for today, in terms of personal finance, there's a big difference between money that they earn and have to manage, right? And understanding that I get a paycheck, taxes comes out of that, and this whole needs versus wants, and that money's not unlimited, and they've got to learn how to budget. I do think that those lessons learned early makes for a stronger, responsible citizen as an adult when they go into adulthood. And I've seen that even with my own children. I think it starts with the allowance, and that's a good way. They have to actually now use the money they have, right? But as teenagers, adolescent, in high school, I think there's a valuable lesson in responsibility and financial responsibility. And just an awareness of budgeting and saving when they earn a wage, and then they have to depend on the wage they earn to, make do and make sound choices with their finances. So absolutely, I think that they can and should do both.
Are you doing anything else like that horticulture program? I mean, that sounded really cool. Do you have any other examples you can give us of initiatives that you're undertaking?
Well, right now, all of our career and technical education students, all of our CTE students are automatically members of the CTE student organization. And they are also many of them are a part of Future Business Leaders of America, which is the largest student organization in the world. And that helps them to understand not just business, but business management, as well as financial management. So those are some things that we're doing similarly so that they can get some real world application.
In the background here is the fact that you're doing this in a huge school district that is incredibly diverse. How are you able to execute to such a broad array of people?
That's interesting because I never think about it. We just do it. Right now we have 90 teachers that are actually teaching our economics and personal finance courses. And we make sure we schedule and enroll in a way that all students meet that requirement by the end of their high school career. But I think that it has become a part of really being embedded in our strategic plan. So we have a 4-year strategic plan, and it's prioritized in the work that we're doing. And anything that we prioritize as a part of our strategic plan and then invest in that takes root in the entire organization, and everyone is a part of it and feel a shared responsibility for it. We also just know that this is a fundamental skill that students will need to be successful in life.
I'd like to add to that. I give PWCS a major compliment. So at Apple, we work with a lot of community organizations and many school districts. And something that I think Prince William County does really well is executes at a site-specific level. So I think you've got leaders in charge of individual schools that understand the needs of that individual school. To your question, John, about having such a vast array of families and people, I think you've got site-specific leaders who are doing a really good job and leveraging the resources that they have in their own particular community to help realize the goals of the strategic plan.
Absolutely, and I really did, that just jogged my memory on the fact that we set a goal to have every single school have a unique business or community partner. And right now we're at 100%. All of our schools have an assigned business or community partner to advance their school improvement goals, which financial literacy is a big part of that. And so our partnerships really play a huge role, whether it's scholarships, whether it's work-based learning experiences, internships, apprenticeships. So yeah, that's a huge part. We can't do this work alone, and so the work that we do, like our partnership with Apple, as well as so many other community and business partners, really help us to advance the mission of economic stability and personal financial health for our students.
Yeah, and in terms of support, you mentioned there are state standards, right? Are you getting the support you need from lawmakers? Do they understand what you're going through?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, as recent as 2019, the General Assembly passed a change to the original bill to ensure that school systems have objectives around post-secondary success in terms of financial wellness. So absolutely, we're getting the support from the Virginia Department of Education. And look, I think it's important to note that Virginia is leading the way in this. Right now, Virginia schools have 50% of the top 100 schools for financial literacy. So that shows that Virginia is doing something right.
And Katie, you're obviously a business partner
Absolutely,
of schools.
yes. Right. Yep.
So this is obviously important to your company as well.
It is, yeah. It's at Apple, our roots are in education, and that's the initial community that we serve. We now, of course, serve the rest of the community as well. But education is deeply important to who Apple is, and it's something that we believe, as we're talking about economic mobility, as we're talking about breaking glass ceilings, without being educated, and specifically around financial literacy, which we happen to be experts at, you get challenged, right? So we really view it's our duty, and when we're working with a partner that's willing to be creative and meet the public where it's at, we're happiest.
All right, so Katie, what are some of your takeaways from our conversation with Dr. McDade?
I think it's really important for parents to know they're not in this alone. We obviously know that the school system is there to support what's happening at home. Apple Federal Credit Union has a learning center where we've got videos and blogs and articles that have up-to-date information for parents as far as banking goes and teaching their kids about banking.
Anything else?
So at Apple, kids can get an account as early as the age of 0, and we have a special rate savings account that exists for kids up to the age of 23, which is a great way for them to put away birthday money or holiday money or an allowance and actually see it grow on a monthly basis.
Yeah, any more thoughts on allowances?
Do it. Yeah, that's my final thought for sure, is
Okay.
that earning an allowance is an opportunity for a kid to really understand how money works and where they're placing their values as far as tracking their spending is concerned.
Thank you both. A wealth of knowledge. I learned a ton. I really appreciate it. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having us.
I'd like to thank both of our guests, Katie Knight, the Community Engagement Officer at Apple FCU, and Dr. Latanya McDade, Prince William County Public Schools Superintendent of Schools. I'm John Aaron. You've been watching the discussion Raising Financially Responsible Kids, Public Education and Financial Literacy. For more on this discussion, go to WTOP.com and search Apple FCU.